All right, I just got done watching The Dark Knight Rises, and oh boy, I've got a lot to I've got a bit to say about that. The Dark Knight Rises, the third the third in Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, and where do I start? I don't think it's bad. But I don't think it's good either. I would put it somewhere in the middle because if I'm being completely honest, it's not poorly made. It's not poorly made. The main problem with the movie has to do with more of the story being told here and the characters that show up in it. So I think it's shot well. I think the music is still great. The editing is still well done. Except there was like one scene that was weird in terms of editing. It was like I'm and this is gonna be a spoiler. It's when okay, you know what? I'll get to it when I get to it. Let me just say what's going on. First off, weird thing about this story, it takes place a couple like 7 or 8 years after the Dark Knight, which is fine, but the entire time Batman was just inactive. He just disappeared. What? I mean, I'm all for Batman retiring and then having to come out of retirement, but right after the events of the Dark Knight, I don't know. I that just doesn't sit well with me. I don't think that just seems odd, but they say they've like were totally cleaning up the city and whatnot, so I don't know. Um but whew, okay. So the movie okay, let me think for a moment. The main villain of this movie is Bane at first. And I will say he's not bad. He's not bad, quotation, but, and this is a pretty big but, I think he's probably the second weakest villain in this thing. Like, he's not bad. He's there, but he's just not really he's just there, you know? The movie makes you think for the whole time like he's the big mastermind pulling the strings all together. And I just don't really think it fits the character Bane. I just don't think it fits Bane, like this super criminal mastermind. I don't think it fits him at all. But then it's revealed, because there's a twist, that the main villain all along was Talia al Ghul, Raj al Ghul's daughter, the villain from the first movie. And no joke, I think that's such a bad twist. I really do think it's a bad twist. It like I'm not joking. It is literally exactly on par with like you know how in Frozen the Prince Hans or whatever, it turns out he's like just a bad guy now. Like towards the end of that movie, it's exactly like this in The Dark Knight. I'm not even joking. And speaking of Talia, for most of the movie, I said Bane's just there. Not really, kind of. She's even less of a presence. in this movie, and same with Catwoman, Selena Kyle. She also shows up in this movie, and I think that's just a bad idea in general. There's usually a reason why Catwoman and Talia al Ghul are never usually together in Batman stories. It's because they kind of clash. They don't really fit together in stories together like that. So I don't really think they should be in stories together like that, because it creates a problem with Batman's dynamic, and there's not even really a dynamic, cuz this movie is paced, the way this movie is paced, I'm going to just be honest. I don't like it. I don't like the pacing of this movie. It's a little all over the place. This movie is like 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's almost 15 minutes away from being 3 hours long. It is almost 3 hours long, and you can really feel it cuz like they are trying to tell a story, finish out this trilogy, and I think they kind of do that, but I don't think it was done execution wise. I don't think it was done super well, because they try to complete the story like of why do we fall down to pick ourselves back up, kind of like that. They kind of hint towards the theming of that like that, but it's just not really handled super well, I think. And so it just clashes. And so cuz there's a lot of characters in this movie, because the pacing's a little off, a lot of characters don't really get a lot of time to shine. Like Selena Kyle and Talia al Ghul. I'm just calling her Talia. I've already forgotten her what she went by in the movie. Talia, she just shows up from time to time, and then I guess has an off-screen schmex scene with Bruce, and that's like her fifth scene, I believe. Because the first scene, she's like, I want to talk to Bruce, and second, to like talk about healing the world. I guess it's supposed to be trying to be. I think it's supposed to try and hint that she's following her father's dream, but I just don't think it's done well. And it's not really. There's just nothing there to like set it up and create some sort of mystery about it. It's just she just mentions it and then just disappears. Shows back up and to mention again, disappears. Third scene, she shows up. Bruce shows her the reactor and he's like, "Hey, listen, um, Bane took away all my stock with my fingerprint, and now I need to make sure that you're running the company because you're the only one I trust." But we don't really see or even really know about that trust being built, so it's just like, I just guess we're supposed to accept it, I guess. And then um and then the next scene after that, it's a board meeting where you get kicked out. And then the last and final scene, the fifth scene with that, is her showing up at his house. And then I guess it's supposed to try and set up a romance with her, but it doesn't really work. It just happens. There's no setup for the romance with her, and there's no really setup with romance for Selena Kyle, who's also in this movie, who just shows up from point to point. She's the one who steals Bruce Wayne's fingerprints the so the bad guys can do what to tank Bruce Wayne's stock prices in Wayne Industries, so that way he gets kicked off the board, and so that way I guess have access to the um the Wayne Enterprises, but nothing really. I don't really understand what the point of it was. Like they were working, trying to pretending to work for a guy called John Daggett, and then after that kind of falls through, they kill him. But Talia al Ghul is the CEO, but the whole time she's acting like she's still part of the good guys. And like there's a scene with her. There's a scene where they get betrayed at some point. Like special forces come into the city to try and help out. And then they're like, "Oh, someone snitched." And I guess they're trying to set it up, but they just, again, she barely shows up, and so there's really no mystery for Talia to be like even set up at all. Romance, any mystery about who she is, it just doesn't really work out. And then and then Commissioner Gordon, he's there. Does he really do a whole lot? He makes papers as of a speech telling people that Harvey Dent went bad and tried to kill his son. Like at the end of the Dark Knight, which I'm sorry if I didn't really tell you that. Sorry. I just sorry. But okay. So he gets so all that does is it leaves lets Bane like read those papers later on, and it doesn't really lead to anything. It doesn't really lead to anything for the most part, other than Bane releasing all the prisoners in Blackgate Prison that were prosecuted under basically Harvey's name. And that's really it. That's really it. And there's just like one line saying that he's, you know, where he's like, "You don't know the feeling of how getting your hands dirty," or something along those lines. And someone's like, "I don't know, Commissioner, your hands are pretty filthy." But that's really all that comes from it. They try to do something deep with it, but nothing really comes from it. And then he just kind of leads a sort of resistance, I guess. And then there's one last character to talk about because Alfred kind of just disappears. Like, is it about an hour into this movie? 45 minutes, somewhere around that time frame. Alfred just kind of leaves because he's like, "I don't want you to be Batman anymore. Like, I don't want you to die." And then he kind of disappears. And then sets something up for the ending. It was like, "Oh, I wish when you were gone, I wish I would go to this one place, look up at a table, and just hope you'd be there with someone, and hope that you would be all right or whatever." You just look, and it's just there to set up an ending, which not really good. I don't. Nah, I don't vibe with. And then there's the last character who's like, his name is Blake. He's there. He's like a sidekick almost. No joke. Towards the end, they mention that his name is Robin. So it's like trying to set up as Robin, but it's not any Robin we've known before. It's not Dick Grayson. It's not Dick Grayson. It's not Jason Todd. It's not Tim Drake. I don't think Damian Wayne was a thing when this movie was made, so not him. Not that would even work with Talia. which I don't mind if there's like a new Robin, but like he's a grown he's a grown man, and the connection he and for some reason he already figured out that like Bruce Wayne is Batman. He's like, oh yeah, I know you're Batman. Pretty much the first interaction he had, he's like, oh, I know you took the fall for Harvey Dent's death. And the line for that is because he recognized, because he learned how to hide his anger and frustration because he's an orphan, just like Bruce Wayne. And he's like, oh, when I looked at your face when you came to the orphanage I grew up in, I recognize your face as someone trying to hide your anger like me. And that's how he figures out he's the Bruce Wayne is Batman. Okay, sure. And I guess it, but he does quite a he does stuff. Yeah, I just it's just bizarre. And then towards the later end of the movie, after Bane fights Batman, he beats Batman, breaks his back, and then puts him in like this prison, which is the deepest, darkest pit. The pit's supposed to like represent the whole why do we fall, and so we can learn to pick ourselves back up kind of theming around it. That's the point of the pit. And it's like it's supposed to be the origin of the child who escaped, and they try to make you think it's Bane the entire time, and then it's like, oh, plot twist, it's Talia actually, and Bane was like the protector, which I don't doesn't really fit, but whatever, you can do whatever with the characters as long as they are the characters, but they just don't really fit as the characters. But if they did, sure, you could maybe create that dynamic, because other mediums have taken their own liberties with other villains throughout characters, like for example Doc Ock. He used to be a random guy until the 90s series actually gave him a connection with him and Spider-Man, Peter Parker. So it's not a bad idea, you know? Create some sort of connection between two different villains. That's all right, Maybe something later on could establish this, make some sort of connection and more flesh it out later on, you know. But it didn't really work in this situation. Nothing really came from that, but it was a thing. And anyway, the villain's plan is they take this reactor, turn it like into a nuclear bomb, take it out of its shelling so it deteriorates, and it eventually explodes after like 5 months, which gives Batman plenty of time to heal and climb out of the pit. But then, and they threaten the whole city. They're like, oh. And so they basically trap Gotham, and they basically get the government to be like, oh, you're gonna make sure you keep everybody in, or else, bomb go boom. And I just think that's bad. Because the problem with that is, like, that's, like, a very, very big threat. I think it's a little too big for Batman. Like, it goes beyond, it's something that goes way beyond Gotham. And, it, like, gets the government involved. And for, like, I guess 5 months, you just sit on their ass and do nothing, which I think is kind of stupid. like it's fine to have like bigger threats to Gotham like that, but the problem is it just you have to do it well, and I don't think it was done well because Batman's a guy. He's a guy who went through hard times and decides to take those hard time and that pain and use it to do some good and fight crime. And having something that gets the government involved and should have the government doing stuff, I think is just a bad idea. It makes me feel like the like the army or government or whatever in this movie should have done more, and it's just confusing. But yeah, mm. Yeah, I just don't think the story and characters are really good. I don't think it's good at all. I don't think it's bad. It's not because don't get me wrong. I don't think it's I think it's from a technical standpoint, it's like well shot, well edited and all that. But from the story perspective, it's not good. But it doesn't mean it's bad to watch or boring to watch. It's not like something that's like kind of bad like Venom 3 or something boring bad like Dark Phoenix. Like real talk compared to like Dark Phoenix or X-Men Dark Phoenix or Fantastic Four 2014 15 or Fan Four Stick. Batman The Dark Knight Rises is leagues more competent. Like I consider X-Men The Dark Phoenix and X-Men Dark Phoenix and Fan Four Stick like the worst of the worst superhero movies. They're just so those movies are just so boring. Those movies are so boring. The Dark Knight Rises is shot well. It does attempt to finish off the trilogy with a nice, neat little bow. I just don't think it was executed well. And it's not like it's boring. It is entertaining. But it just has a lot of problems with its structure and its story that just brings it down a whole lot. Probably give this a 5 or a 6. But yeah. Sorry I was rambling so long. I just had all these thoughts. I just wanted to, get them out there. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day or night. And take care. Goodbye.